Welcome to the Fantasy Aceball podcast. This is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on X at Fantasy Aceball. And with us again for part 2, National League, we've got Mike Kurland. And you can find him on the Twitter machine at Mike_Kurland. If you are looking for a top follow for playing time and you want to know what's going on in spring, but don't necessarily want to watch the games and look at the MLB box scores, Mike's going to do it all for you. Make your life nice and easy. What's up, Mike?
There's so much going on, and my head is like ready to burst with just everything. Because I feel like it's one of those things where, because I'm so hyper focused on it, I have to hope not. I'm just hoping not to miss anything. And then, like, if I miss something, I give myself too much of a hard time, as if I'm not trying to cover a whole lot of stuff. But anyways, enough about that. What's going on?
You got to play 80-20, you know, as long as you've got 80% good, you're okay, right?
No, it's all or nothing. All or nothing.
A 95% in school is still an A.
Yeah, and a C is still a passing score. Doesn't make it good enough.
Oh, okay. Perfectionist here. All
Not
right,
really.
All right, Mr. Perfectionist. That means we're going to come back and grade you on all these battles later.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with the Arizona Diamondbacks because we don't have a team in the National League that doesn't like to go by their city or their location, unlike the Athletics that are just the Athletics. So we've got the Arizona Diamondbacks, and let me throw up on our screen here so everybody else can follow along with us our show sheet. So you can see that in the National League, if you're watching, if you're listening, you can't see. Sorry. You're just listening. But Arizona Diamondbacks, our first position battle, is this thing that we have going on with maybe Jordan Lawlar. It's like how much basically this is either a position battle or not a position battle, depending on how much the Diamondbacks actually care about the development of Jordan Lawlar at this point in time. Because they could just roll in and say, okay, we just signed Perdomo long term. We got it for 4 years. We have Suarez locked down. We've got Pavin Smith. Gonna be strong side platoon, and Jordan Lawlar, you have to basically play yourself out of this paper bag to make it. Or it's, hey, this is our top prospect. We need to play him because we need him to develop because he was our top prospect. So let's make it happen no matter what, even if it's at the expense of right now. Like, what do you think is going to happen with this whole situation?
So there was like an early report this offseason about, because I thought Lawlar was going to break camp as their third baseman. And then they signed Suarez, and I was like, okay, there goes that, because they love Perdomo. And then they extended Perdomo, not like a super expensive extension, but enough to that tells me that, hey, he's going to probably start at shortstop for a little bit. They love his glove there too. And Lawlar, I think he would have had a better shot at breaking camp had he not gotten injured twice last year, including a second injury that ended his season. I don't think he's long for being down in the minors by any means. And as Suarez has a similar start to this year they did last year, I'm not sure we see a second half potential bounce back for Suarez, because I don't think he gets that opportunity. So I think it's more, but I think Lawlar more likely to move off of shortstop, play third and something else. And we see, but to start the year, I think he's in the minors, especially given the signings, the extensions, and everything else. And as much as Lawlar deserves to be up, and I think it's almost like the Lowder thing, where Lawlar might be injury prone at this point in his career, but why are they wasting their bullets on him in the minors? But the argument is also that he missed so much time last year because of injury. It let him get his feet, let him just get his bearings and get going. So I think we see Lawlar up sooner than later. But unfortunately, I don't think there's a clear path for him right now. I mean, I think there's a clear path. I don't think the team's going to just give it to him, though, right now.
Yeah, I think they would have to, commit to moving Suarez to first, maybe, or DH, or Naylor to DH. Or if they wanted to try Naylor in the outfield, that's happened before. Naylor has played in the outfield before. So if they want to,
that was probably before he gained 40 pounds.
Yeah, that was also how he got hurt. So earlier in his career. So it's like, maybe if they want to play around with some things like that, they could always try their best to create some room here. But then again, it could also be a situation where they just say, okay, all these guys are going to just take a day off every week, and then we'll shuffle guys around and figure it out, like we talked about with some of the other teams. So I don't know. Interesting one there. Closer, Justin Martinez versus Kevin Ginkel versus AJ Puck. Who is running away with this closer job? Martinez was awesome last year, but he's also still very young. Do really see them just giving Martinez, super young right now, the closer role, knowing how all these teams operate when it comes to young closers and their fear of the arbitration dollar? Like, what do you think they actually do here?
So I've read a couple quotes, and two of them have said different things. One was the manager himself saying, like, gun to his head, he picked Puck to be the closer. But then there was like a recent report that was like, well, Puck is probably like, it sounds. I think Puck will factor. I don't think he's a zero. I just don't think he leads this team as a closer. I think it does end up being more of a committee. They do have lefties, or at least one lefty in the bullpen other than Puck. It depends on what they do depth-wise. Do they put Montgomery in a multi-inning role? It's hard to believe they would actually do that. But it's like one of those things that maybe they try it because he was so poor as a starter, and they have other guys like they have Brandon Pfaadt that they have to figure out. They have Ryan Nelson. They have guys that probably are better than Montgomery at this point. But do they want? But that's a lot of money to be paying a guy to pitch out of the bullpen. But regardless, so say they do that, then they do have more lefties. But if they don't do that, then right now you would only see Joe Mantiply as the only other lefty, which would limit. Again, it goes back to what we talked about yesterday, where the lefties are, the more lefties are, the more lefties that there are in the bullpen, the better the odds are for a lefty to close. And Puck's kind of on that line of not enough lefties, and he's so good that he probably gets like he'll face like if they're facing the Mets and Soto and that part of the lineup is coming up, he's probably going to be in against that part of the lineup as long as there's 2 out of 3 lefties type of thing, especially the way teams stack lineups these days. It's usually very lefty righty. So, but Martinez I think ends up leading the way. I don't think Ginkel is a factor unless there's an injury, even though Ginkel showed flashes last year to start the year, just not seeing it this year.
Yeah, or like my thoughts are, I think Martinez is still a whole another year from arbitration. So it's like maybe he's so far away that they just pirates it and they're like, okay, we don't care. We're going to use him and abuse him right now. And then once he hits arbitration years, we'll figure it out. Or if they have some sort of formula where like, okay, once they hit X amount of saves, that's where we really see the arbitration dollar bump. So maybe they say, okay, as long as he stays under 12 saves or something like that, then we know that the arbitration is not really going to inflate his value too much. And they just try to like limit him. I'm sure they have like equations and stuff like that, and they know what the arbitrators are looking for. So just an interesting thing to look out for, because you would think going in, okay, they're just going to put the best guy, but that's not always the case because this is a business. So that always factors in. The Braves, the only matchup that I have for the Atlanta Braves is this basically like back end of their rotation. So SP4, SP5 right now, you've got like a Grant Holmes, Ian Anderson, AJ Smith-Shawver, Hurston, Waldrep, Bryce Elder combo in here. I don't know. Like, is Ian Anderson really gonna start? Like, this guy he's never really done anything in the majors. Elder actually has been able to prove that he can eat innings if they need someone like that. And like, I think Smith-Shawver has the highest potential of the group. So like, what do you think the Braves are going to do with all these guys?
So Grant Holmes is getting stretched out. Obviously, that's the big news. I think it's his spot to lose. I think he's kind of like the safest of the bunch to start, at least to start the year, and especially after the success they just had doing this with Lopez too. So, but the big thing for Ian Anderson is he has no options left, and the rest of the guys on the list do, and that right there could give him an inside track towards it. Maybe like that would be the only thing that kind of plays into his favor. Plus, I believe he finished out. I'm trying to remember. When was he? Like, remember, not Ian Anderson. Which name am I thinking of? Somebody was it? No, I thought it was Ian Anderson. Maybe it was Shawver. I can't remember. They all kind of mesh together in my brain because they all come up for a start or two, get sent back down. Bryce Elder did have that little run of relevance. I think this is one of those things. Well, Ian Anderson has no options, so it's either a bullpen role or a starter role. So he might get the first crack at it as their 5 and see how he does type of thing because of the options they can play. And then if he struggles, they can either DFA him or send him to the pen and call up one of the young guys. Because Waldrep has potential. Smith-Shawver we've seen has potential. Elder feels very much like kind of the guys we were talking about yesterday, the back end of those rotation 5 SPC, like your SP6 that you call up for spot starts more than anything. So I think Holmes is the safest, and Ian Anderson, just given the options, maybe they give him the first crack and see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Soroka White Sox type deal. It's just funny because like those guys all came from the Braves. So it's like it's like that Soroka, Bryce Wilson, all Braves, and then now you got Ian Anderson, who's basically like in the same role, but he's actually on the Braves. Chicago Cubs. This is a fun one. We have Javier Assad, who the Cubs like for some reason as a starter. I think he'd be better as a reliever. I guess he's okay. And then you've got Ben Brown, who's a lot of fun and was very successful when he was pitching last year. Jordan Wicks, who has gone through some stints of being okay. And then Killian is also still like floating around there. So, and then obviously we have like Cade Horton in the back, but he's hurt and been dealing with injuries. So I don't think he's really going to factor in for opening day, maybe further down the line into the season. But like, I think right now it's probably primarily like an Assad, Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks matchup. And like this is all about, okay, do they see Ben Brown as a starter or a reliever? Because he's primarily a 2-pitch guy. So like, what do you think is going to happen with this grouping?
As much as I love Ben Brown. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. And Killian's another guy. I kind of like. Killian was a guy I fell for last year. Just thinking, I'm like, because I think he's been 2 years now. He's kind of teased us. Like, I think it was 2 years ago where Killian looked solid, got injured last year. He never really even broke camp. It was like there was hype there. There was a gain in velo, I believe, in spring, stuff like that. But Ben Brown's been a guy. Well, they also toyed with him last year. Didn't they have him in the pen here and there as well? So like multi-inning stuff, or maybe like
he had moved in and out. So he had been doing and I don't know if that was all based on need, like, oh, we don't have a starter, so we have to use Ben Brown here, or if that was like based on desire of like, let's see what this guy's got as a starter.
And the problem is those, like you said, I mean, they signed Matthew Boyd. So you have Boyd and then Assad, but they also signed Colin Ray, who isn't exactly a starter, but he fits that Bryce Elder kind of mold where he's just like a guy that can fill in and spot start. I do think it's like Assad's job to lose, but I'm not excited about Assad. You tell me Wicks or Ben Brown get a shot, and Wicks looked solid last year, other than before the injuries and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if Wicks wins it. I feel like Ben Brown, like in terms of exciting and stuff wise, he's that guy. But I think he might be the third in terms of like their preference, because they might want a guy that they trust more. And Ben Brown could be a great multi-inning guy in their bullpen.
Yeah, I hope it's Ben Brown, but like
me too. I just don't expect it.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'm not very confident in that. Cincinnati Reds. This one's interesting. It looks like I read yesterday. It was after our podcast, but I read that Spencer Steer is apparently, I think, supposed to start throwing again soon. So that's good news for him, like not clogging up the DH role, because they kind of need, with all the guys they have, they kind of need that open to filter guys through. But we've got this whole DH, first base, third base, left field, corner type deal of Spencer Steer. You've got CES healthy this year. Jeimer Candelario, who they signed last year. Gavin Lux, who they just traded for. And then the Noelvi Marte top prospect that they traded for, steroids, came back, was terrible when he came back, when he was really good before. And like, do you think that this is a situation when they just give up completely on Marte? Or this is not quite Lawlar, right? Like Lawlar has had injuries, and he had already proven in the minors that he could be, a top guy. Like he had a really good breakout in the minors. Whereas like Marte, never, like, he was okay. Like he was never really as good as he was projected out to be as a prospect, in my opinion. And then he had the steroid thing, and it's like, okay, do you ding him more for the whole steroid thing than you would for an injury? Probably just like subconsciously, but what do you think?
So I think that, and there's already been reports that he's pretty much not breaking camp with the team. He's going to be getting reps with like and I guess it's because in the backfields, he's getting all his reps with the backup guys too. He's not even getting reps at third. Like, how like they'll line you up for third base with like two other guys, and it's usually the major leaguers are all together. Marte's lining up with the minor leaguers in the backfields, even from my understanding. So I think he's already kind of like being jettisoned, and he had a bad Dominican League outing as well, so he didn't even get going there. So I think Marte is on the outside looking in, and it's not even close, barring injury. But we had this issue last year with the Reds, and it kind of just works itself out via injury, rest days. I think all these guys are going to get regular days off. Spencer Steer being healthy would be helpful, because he would go back. He could play the outfield more. Lux, they've talked mostly second base, third base, but if what's his face, McClain is like, they expect him to be the primary second baseman. So I feel like Lux is like the backup second baseman, but will play corner, outfield, and third base as needed. Candelario, same thing. He's going to get a shot to play third base, as well as CES. Apparently they're all getting reps at third base. So I think third base is kind of very much up in fly, like it's very much up in the air. But I project CS as a starter. Other places haven't. Maybe I haven't checked recently. But last time I looked, like RotoWire and Roster Resource weren't projecting CS to start, and I don't think CS makes a team and doesn't start. because especially that's what and we saw it last year when he made the team. He was starting every single day. So I think CES can play. I think he'll play first base or DH more often than not, but Candelario will play most days. Lux should at least be a strong side platoon. It's just Marte's out, and I think that Steer and Lux and those guys are kind of going to give everyone regular days off. You'll have Candelario getting regular days off, CES even. It's going to be a pain, but I'm sure there'll be an injury or something that'll just clear things up like last time. But Marte's clearly the one that's going to, by far, like no shot at making this team, it seems like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like earlier, before spring started, they were like, "Oh, Matt McLain might play third. He might play some center field," which would have been really cool to get that extra eligibility out of him. But now it sounds like he's just kind of take second. And Gavin Lux, famously, almost, or I guess infamously, like with the Dodgers, had throwing issues from short. Yeah. So like moving him from short to third is kind of like an interesting choice for a dude who has throwing issues. If like McLain had the potential to play that position. So I guess
and the outfield too, because McLain played the outfield in the AFL, didn't he?
Yeah, he's played in the outfield.
That's what I'm saying. So why I'm surprised they won't move him to the outfield, give Lux second base where the arm can play there at least. Putting the arm anywhere else seems like a liability, but maybe he worked on it. Who knows?
Yeah, I tend to trust Francona. So like he kind of knows what he's doing. Maybe he'll just play around with these guys a little bit in the spring. So maybe even though they've said McLain is going to be the second baseman, maybe they do play around with it a little bit. Like it wouldn't hurt, I feel like, to leave possibilities open because this is a team that does have injury issues, which we saw last year. SP5 for the Reds, Nick Martinez versus Rhett Lowder. Nick Martinez is actually like underratedly like really good, especially for a fifth starter. He's like one of the better fifth starters, I would say, because I feel like he'd be like a 3 or 4 on a lot of teams. But as a prospect guy, like I really want to see Rhett Lowder win this job, and I'm just like, okay, Martinez is also good in the bullpen. Just send him over there. Like, let's get the young gun up. What do you think is going to happen here with these two?
So Lowder might just be stuck going to the minors for the simple fact that he's late. Like he's progressing late in camp because of injury, but also they gave Martinez the qualifying offer. So I think it's like a $20 million. I think he's guaranteed the rotation. I think it's Abbott that might be in question also because he's dealing with injury though. So I don't think it's more, but I think it might be Lowder deserves to break camp, especially over some of these guys. But like Singer, I don't think Singer deserves a spot over him. Not that Singer's bad, but it's, I don't know. Singer's just Brady Singer, he's goes back. Go back to Bryce Elder. It's kind of how I view Singer as just this quality depth arm. But I don't know. I think Lowder or Abbott, whichever one doesn't progress in time, I think those are the two that would end up going back to the minors. Martinez, the money he's making guarantees him a shot. And that's also why, you see Ashcraft probably also either in the minors to stay stretched out or in a multi-inning role.
Yeah. The funny thing is he probably thought that when the Padres signed for a decent amount of money a few years ago too.
That's true.
Colorado Rockies, right field. Sam Hilliard is kind of like, I don't know. He's been around for a while, kind of like, okay, locked in the spot. Like, I guess he's like a worse version of Jose Siri, kind of. But Jordan Beck is the interesting name here, right? Like, Jordan Beck came up last year and then got hurt and was really good in the minors before he got hurt. So I feel like he has an outside shot here. Zach Veen is more of like a flyer. I think that Beck would have the upper hand over Veen. But like out of these guys, Jordan Beck, Sam Hilliard, Zach Veen, what is your expectation of who is going to be the starting right fielder for the Rockies out of camp?
For me, it's Jordan Beck. Sam Hilliard last year was supposed to be like a starter, and then he didn't. I think he actually had DFA'd or I forgot what happened to him, that he didn't even break camp like as a starter at all, and he was like projected he actually had a clearer path to starting. I think it was Sam Hilliard last year, and so people have, like, I've seen some places having him as a starter, and I never bought into. I just couldn't because of how they treated him last year with less competition. And Jordan Beck, if he was going to make this team, I think he's going to be a full-time starter. And today, both of them are in the lineup in spring training. Again, one lineup doesn't matter for much. Some missing pieces, so it's like a mix of starters and backups. And Beck got the right field reps. Hilliard's at DH, so obviously they're just getting Hilliard some at bats. But I think there was also another report because, again, being locked into this stuff is I really do try to consume it all. And Beck is the favorite to win the right field job right now too. So it sounds like it's his job to lose, and no reason why they would give Sam Hilliard this, like, the guy that they always give like a depth role fourth out. I think he's a good fourth outfielder. I think he'll make the team as like a bench outfielder, but I think it's Beck's job.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that one. Closer for the Rockies, you've got Tyler Kinley versus Seth Halverson. This is almost like the Justin Martinez scenario, right? Like Halverson was throwing straight fire out of the pen last year when he came up, and like he's got the higher upside. Kinley, I don't know. I feel like the Rockies always tend to go with like older, kind of boring closers over the stuff guys. So like what I mean, I guess and Lawrence is still hanging around too, I guess. But like I think it's probably going to be Kinley or Halverson. Like who do you think gets the primary bulk of saves for the Rockies this year?
I think you just got to go with Halverson, a guy who managed to actually small sample but do well in his 12 innings after getting called up last year. But he also pitched well in the minors. I mean, the ERA is a little inflated because obviously it's all bad elevation where he plays, but you just go for the stuff, man. And honestly, they're all going so late. They're all like gas cans just ready to explode. But I think Halverson it's weird that he found control in those few innings. I know you don't usually need a whole lot of sample for relievers because, relievers as a whole annually small sample. So 12 innings for him to suddenly find his command and control to be able to attack the zone was weird for Halverson. But I'll see how that goes. But at the end of the day, though, I think I'm just going to go for the stuff. And realistically, what they did last year was, hey, this guy has the job. Oh, he got blown up 2 straight saves. Next guy. And it was kind of a rotation. But I think Halverson has the best chance to not have that happen to him.
Yeah, I agree. And talking about Halverson and the small sample sizes, Stuff Plus is like with the that and swing strike rate are like the quickest stats that stabilize. And 13.4 swing strike rate, 108 Stuff Plus, 103 on the fastball. So I don't think any other Rockies pitchers have anywhere near that kind of stuff. They're all probably below average. So like just on a stuff basis, I feel like if the Rockies actually want to compete and be like seen as a serious team, they have to do something like that. Because if you just keep throwing out like the older guys, it's just like becomes okay. Rockies are going to do that again. All right.
Rockies gonna rock you, bro.
Yeah, exactly. LA Dodgers, we have an interesting situation here because you've got Ohtani, who will not be opening the year in the rotation because everybody, once all these pitchers signed, like all of Team Japan signed with LA this year, everyone is like, oh, they're going to run 6-man rotation. But it's like, can they even fill a 6-man rotation? Because Kershaw's hurt, starting on the 60-day IL. You've got Ohtani not starting the season as a pitcher. I think he's not going to throw till May. You may know better than that on me than that.
That sounds about right, roughly. There's like a weird, you know how it is. Ohtani seems to always come back sooner than, or do things sooner than he's expected. The guy had off-season shoulder surgery. He's already like swinging bats and stuff and throwing. So who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And then the rest of the rotation though are not like injury resistant stalwarts or like, icons of health because you've got like Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and Roki Sasaki. So all these guys might end up coming to play before the end of the spring. But right now you've got like this SP5 competition of Tony Gonsolin, Bobby Miller, Landon Knack. And I guess if you want to throw Dustin May in there too, maybe they try him again. I think if the Dodgers wanted to be realistic about like the best utilization of May and to keep him healthy, he should probably be in the bullpen. But they have a really good bullpen, so I guess they could just say, "Hey, the bullpen at this point is so stable. Like, let's just try it again." But I guess you could probably throw Dustin May in there too. But what do you think is going to happen with all these guys?
It's weird because I know Mac isn't really like, or Knack isn't really like a guy, especially like among these other names. I guess he would be rather similar to Gonsolin in terms of like the skill set of being like not as flashy or like not as much like stuff there, but just gets the job done. And that's why I think Gonsolin might have the inside track there. But I do think it's one of those things where there's gonna be so like I think I can see Bobby Miller still making 20 starts even as an SP6 for this team. You know what I mean? Like, and he took a line drive off the head. But it's weird because like when I think of a guy who's fighting for a spot, I don't usually think of them as coming in second in a game. Like yesterday, Bobby Miller, it was the first game of spring. I'm sure he'll get his own little starts here and there, but he was the second starter to come into the game. And that's, to me, that's when you see people fighting for a rotation spot, they usually start the game. And that's just like, I don't know if I'm making that up. I feel like that's what I've just always seen in my head. Like it's hard for me to remember last time, hey, this guy's fighting for a rotation spot, but we're going to go ahead and just start him off starting as the second or third guy to come into a game because at that point you might not even be facing the starting hitters. You know what I mean? You're just getting reps and you're not even facing the best competition. So I don't know. I want to think it's probably Gonsolin that leads the way right now with Bobby Miller second, May third, Knack. as much like Knack, I don't think he's that great. Like realistically, I don't know, I have like this crush on him. He's just a guy I really like. I had him a lot last year on teams and stuff. It was fun to root for him, even though he always outpitched his peripherals. And but yeah,
for you.
yeah. So but I think it's Gonsolin and then Miller. But if Miller got like out pitched him in the spring and won it, wouldn't surprise me. But I do think it's mostly those two guys, because I do think that May would probably best be served either slow build up via like multi-inning guy out of the bullpen, or send him to the minors and work his almost pull the Skeens thing 1, 2, 3, like what we talked about yesterday, kind of like ladder the innings each start type of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Marlins. I've got a lot of Marlins notes here. It's all the bad teams. It's like Marlins and White Sox just have so many position battles. That's what makes them fun. The bad teams are the most fun. So Marlins, you've got Nick Fortes and Agustin Ramirez at catcher. Like, I really hope they go Ramirez, because I like him. Even if he's not catcher, I don't even care. Just get his bat in the lineup somewhere. What do you think happens here?
So like I saw one initial report was like, yeah, Fortes is the guy. Like Ramirez was almost being dismissed. This was like months ago. And then recently there's like, I guess he could break camp. Well, like, no crap. Look at this team. Of course he should be the starting catcher right now. There shouldn't even be a debate. You should give this guy full confidence and let him come out here, and maybe they are. And there's just not a lot of coverage. But I feel like something like that would be known, because Craig Mish is one of the best in terms of like reporters in the game, and he would have definitely got his ears on something like that already and reported it. We would all know. So I think Fortes might be the favorite, even though I think it'd be in short order. Maybe they play manipulation with the whole get the extra year for Ramirez and then call him up. I know he didn't have the best stretch after the acquisition last year, so there is argument there, and obviously, but just like anything else, if he does well in spring, he forces their hand, because this team has no reason not to let their young guys play. And it's weird, because they're like weirdly aggressive, at least with past practice, has been weirdly aggressive with their pitchers. Like, they'll bring guys up early as pitchers, but like hitters, they've also been really terrible at fixing hitters or developing them. So, but I think it's Fortes that gets the first crack, although I'm not drafting Fortes anywhere. But Ramirez, if there's any hint of it, he's definitely a guy that becomes relevant even in one catcher leagues. He becomes that fringe like top 12 guy. Like, you just maybe take a shot on him around that, like the last catcher or type of thing, instead of like, I don't know, like there's really bad catchers out there. He's an upside. He's that upside. He's that fringe top 12 guy if he's cracking an opening day roster as a starter.
I love him. I think like we should probably be looking at the track record of like what the Rays have done in the past since Bendix is there now with their rookies. Are they the type to call their guy up?
No.
And start on opening day? Yeah. Or are they going to play manipulation games? So it'll probably be manipulation games, and maybe right after Super 2 passes, he is up. But he did actually, with the Marlins, kind of figure it out at the end of last season. His last 20 games in AAA, he hit 286, 383, 486. So when he first got to Miami, he struggled a bit. But that might just be a thing of like training. You completely change your org. All new coaches and instructors. You got to go live in a new place now. You got to move.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I totally understand.
Maybe he had a girlfriend and wherever he was at. Like, who knows? Like, what he was dealing with. And it's like, but the last 20 games, he started ripping again. So I'm not really concerned about the tool. I think like that little 20 game stretch showed, okay, he's good now. Like, he's back on track. It's more just like, to me, I think a roster thing where, okay, are the Marlins going to be aggressive and try to win a draft pick here? Or are they just going to be like, no, let's get the years and save on the money? So it kind of just depends on like how they want to play it. But probably knowing the Marlins, they're going to want to save the money, which might actually help us figure out what they're going to do also in this next situation here at first base and DH, because we've got like Jonah Bride, Davison De Los Santos, who they traded for, Griffin Conine, Matt Mervis, Graham Pauley. So like, are they going to start the clock on Davison De Los Santos, or do you think they like, it's like Ramirez and Davison De Los Santos, are they just going to like come up as a pair like right after like the roster manipulation thing? Like, what do you think is going to happen? I
feel like they kind of like wasted time last year with Los Santos. They should have called him up before the end of the year last year. I think we were all surprised that he didn't get any, like even a cup of coffee really. And then they went out and got Matt Mervis. And earlier, so we haven't seen the lineup yet or anything, but the other day a Marlins beat reporter did tweet out like Bride and Mervis were getting run at first base with De Los Santos at third base actually. So maybe we see him at third base, which would also help get him in the lineup. But I don't know. It's Bride looked surprisingly good with the Marlins last year. Like it was a small sample, but overall some interesting numbers that if he started, it wouldn't surprise me. But they also went out and got Matt Mervis, so I think both of them obviously can start via DH, first base. I don't think there's anything that's set in stone on this team in terms of like playing time. There's like not everything's available. But I do think De Los Santos might be third to them for first base. Consider again, just going off that report of like where they're getting their reps in spring so far. But we'll see. We'll get a lot more clarity.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think it's been a couple of years since he played third.
And they have Connor Norby, so I don't know.
Yeah, and they have Norby. But Norby also was a guy for the Orioles who in the minors played everywhere. Like he played second. He played second. Yeah, he also played in the outfield. So it's like you can do that kind of thing. Like you can move him around. Second base here, talking about second base, you got Otto Lopez, Max Acosta, and Jared Cerna. And I'm like, are they just going to go straight defense and put Lopez in, or are they going to try to go for like one of these like possible upside play bats here in Acosta and Cerna?
I think it's Lopez's spot unless he fails. He didn't do bad last year. It's like a batting average, stolen base type of guy. It makes contact. It's just boring, you know. But I think even if he doesn't play, like he's the type of guy that they can also move around as they need, you know. But I think he's gonna play. I think he's a starter regardless. The other guys probably not.
He's got good D, so I mean, like sometimes the glove can keep you in the lineup. It's just like what kind of batting? Like if he is not hitting, then like when do you move him out?
Even when does he become? He could become a utility type. He could be this year like their version of what's his face? They just when they did the Mervis trade, they dealt the 1-for-1. Same idea, same type of player in my brain.
Yeah, or it's like Miguel Rojas a second or something like that.
I need to get the name real quick. It's gonna bother me. The trade was Vidal Brujan. That's a very similar, like in my brain, a very similar player of like when he hits, he'll give you a good average. He'll definitely steal bases. Brujan stole base yesterday, even, you know, it's just one of those things where they'll steal bases, and that's about it. Other than Jesus Sanchez, I don't think, and Xavier Edwards, I don't think there's a whole lot of like, sorry, Connor Norby too. I keep forgetting that he's on this team because I actually like him a lot. But those are like the only three guys I'm like, yeah, these guys are safe. The rest is up for grabs, whoever, wherever, however.
Yeah. What do you think about the rotation here? So obviously, like they were kind of relying on Braxton Garrett, and he got hurt. So Max Meyer, are they just going to let him rip this year, or are they going to play games with him again? I think I heard that he's trying to develop another pitch because like his whole issue is being, you know, fastball slider and like nothing else. And then you've got Adam Mazur, who they got from the Padres, who is a command pitcher who actually has like, he throws heat, like he throws it to like 95. It's just like, there's like no characteristics at all on the fastball.
Flat.
Yeah. Flat in a bad way, not flat in a good way.
Yeah.
So like, but that's basically what you've got with Mazur, like a command guy with like really no stuff. So maybe like best case scenario, he could like work out like a Kyle Hendricksy type career or something like that. If you're like, you know, like, oh, how does he make it work? Oh, he is. I don't know. He's just doing it. So what do you think about these guys? And then they've also got like Snelling and stuff. I just don't think Snelling breaks. Like he's probably a guy that they had a lot of success with Snelling. When Snelling changed orgs to the Marlins last year, all of a sudden he started pitching well again. And I think that this is not the Angels. They probably want to like be a little delicate with that because they're actually good at developing pitchers, unlike the Angels. So I think that they're going to want to play with that and try to get him to continue to develop because he was already young last year even. So I think that they have time with Snelling, and if they're smart about it, they wouldn't want to push that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a Snelling guy in terms of like who I'm rooting for, but I'm also realistic in understanding that we'll probably see him in the second half after the trade deadline when they try to deal Cal Quantrill, maybe Edward Cabrera gets hurt or goes back to the bullpen. Like I have a hard time believing Alcantara and Weathers are on this team if they have good first halves. Like this team's still going to continue to try to shed everything and get whatever they can. But I do think Max Meyer gets the first crack at it. I know it's a different regime, but former first round pick, so talent. You know, we all know the talent's there. Probably better. It was always arguably like very high reliever risk in the profile when he got drafted. So there's that. But yeah, it's got. I think it's just Myers. I think they want to see what they have in the kid. They gave him 110 total innings between the minors and majors last year, so there shouldn't be much limitation on him either. And I think they want to see what they have in them, and why not let them get run?
Yeah, I think at least like give him a Jordan Hicks type run, right? Like, okay, we'll throw you out there.
We'll give
you a third of a season, half a season, see what you can do. And if it's not working right, then okay, we can always move you back to the pen at that point. So talking about the pen closer, we got Calvin Foucher, like kind of slated to be the closer, but like there's still Bender and Andrew Nardi in the wings. Like both of those guys have gotten saves in the past. I think either of them kind of factors in with this closer situation. Do you think Foucher's like locked in, or is it possible that like if one of these guys gets on a heater, that they pull ahead of them?
Yeah, I just the Marlins suck. like I'm a fan, and they just piss me off because there is rumor that they're gonna start. Like, here's the thing, we're gonna talk about them today. There's a number. I think they get like 105 million because of like payroll stuff and to avoid MLBPA, like stuff like that. Like, so I don't even know if half these guys are gonna be relevant because like not that Max Meyer won't be relevant, but they could easily sign Kyle Gibson and go out and get Anthony Rizzo for first base. And these are guys and JD Martinez for DH, because for my big argument for Martinez and Rizzo is because they're both from South Florida and this team needs to spend money. Those would be that could be a good way for like to get some fan favorites, some local people like, oh look, they got local talent in the back in the area. Both of them obviously they're both like 40, so like, but all that, so it goes back to the closer part with Foucher. I think is the guy, but I also could see them going out and like, hey, let's go ahead and try to kick the tires on David Robertson again, or go out and get what's his face they dropped over there in Washington on a 1-year deal. See if they can get any value out of them and then flip them at the deadline too.
Yeah, Robertson makes sense. Closers can get a decent amount for closers when you flip them at the deadline. So like that one makes a lot of sense. Hitters are a little bit, I feel like, trickier to trade, especially if they're like a first base DH type. Which it'd be cool if they did bring in Martinez and Rizzo, but like I feel like go get a closer and flip them at the deadline. Look what the Royals got for Aroldis Chapman, right? They got Cole Reagans. Like you could do that. Go do it.
Exactly. I mean, it's not likely, but exactly.
Yeah. I mean, all they have to do is look at their own team. What did they get for Tanner Scott? They got a lot of prospects for Tanner Scott. So Milwaukee Brewers, second, third. We got this weird situation here. Like, if I'm the Brewers, this is what I'm doing. And they're not going to do it, but this is what I would do. I would play Ortiz at third, Terang at short, Tyler Black at second. That's what I would do, because Tyler Black has a good bat, and like that's a bat I want in the lineup. I don't want him at first.
Play him. I'll say play him. I'll say play him at first or something, just because what's his face is such a liability. Hoskins wasn't even good defensively last year. He's old. He's probably better off as a platoon bat. And they will. And last year when they had Black up, they platooned Black too. So why not just put Black? I know he's not prototypical first baseman. But his glove, isn't he like really awful in the field? That was kind of the issue. But he didn't grade out bad at first base in a small stint last year, which last I checked, I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since I looked at that. But I think he was like roughly league average, give or take. And he graded out better than Hoskins at first base. But again, small sample, so I'm not sure how long it takes for that stuff to really settle in. But at the end of the day, for second base, so tomorrow they actually put the lineup up already for tomorrow's lineup. I was surprised when I just got curious and looked. And Ortiz at shortstop. The team's already come out and said he'll play shortstop. Terang will stay at second, and Gold Glove second baseman is hard to. And Joey Ortiz can be a Gold Glove shortstop. The dude's glove is like legit. And they actually had Caleb Durbin starting at third base, and this was like a lineup with like mostly starters. So I'm not saying that this is like set in stone, and I'm sure we'll see Tyler Black mix in, and even Oliver Dunn mix in at third base in those lineups. But to see Caleb Durbin getting the first crack, and last year was weird. Like they did the same trade. They traded like instead of it wasn't Devin Williams, it was Corbin Burns, and they got back Ortiz and Hall. And remember Ortiz like initially played like 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6. They eased him in, and then he became an everyday player. They can easily do that with Caleb Durbin. Like, okay, we'll play him for like even though he was part of the big trade of the offseason. After seeing how they treated Ortiz, they eventually gave Ortiz full run. So I think Durbin does eventually get full run, assuming that he can do how Ortiz kind of turned it on and got going. So I think, but it's one of those things where if it was a slow burn, kind of like you have to be patient with them because it might not be like full-time run off rip. That's the only thing I'm worried about with Durbin because of how they treated. This is just going based off recent, like they did this same exact type of trade last year, So, but I think I liked what I saw in that lineup, so I'm gonna give the edge to Durbin because Black's glove is just not good. I don't think it's good enough to stick every day, like you said, unless they're willing to move Bryce Terang off of for a second.
Terang also he came up as a shortstop. It was really good at shortstop. He was known as like a glove guy at short even. So like,
Yeah.
I feel like he could play there. He could swing it.
Oh,
It's just a
I
matter of like,
wasn't. I'm not against that at all. I think you're right. I just think that they also have Ortiz, who's also a glove first guy who can
yeah.
definitely hang. And so, would you want to move off the guy that's a Gold Glover at his position, just because you can, or Ortiz could arguably be as good at shortstop too. I think his glove's always been a strength of his though too.
Yeah, very true. Which I mean, like, hey, for me, I would rather have my strongest defenders at short and third if I
Yeah.
line up. So it makes sense to kind of like shift them over, and especially if you want to get Tyler Black's bat in the lineup. Like Caleb Durbin, his exit velocity numbers are so bad that I'm just like not confident.
So are Terrangs, but
yeah, very true, very true.
But this is the type of team where if he could pull the ball in the air, he could probably sneak a few cheap home runs because it's the ballpark, you know.
Yeah, exactly. This is gonna be a weird lineup without Adames in there. There's like no power. This team is basically no power. So it's kind of, and then you've got Frelick still in the outfield too. So it's like a lot of hit tool and a lot of speed with like no power. So like this is almost like they've got to run like Whitey ball, like 90s Cardinals, like be stealing bags all the time.
Yeah.
So SP5, we've got an interesting little scenario here because Brandon Woodruff is coming back from injury. Sounds like he's probably not going to be ready for the start of the season. So this is maybe just a placeholder pitcher ultimately. But DL Hall also got hurt. And then you've got Aaron Ashby, who has never been able to start. And then there's Logan Henderson, who I really like as a young prospect, made it to AAA last year. And so what's going to happen here? It's like, okay, can Ashby really do it? Like, are you really going to throw Ashby out there as a starter? It's just an interesting situation here. I think if I was running the team, I would just throw Logan Henderson out there now and say, okay, it's cool. Well, if we want to do this whole Super 2 thing and he doesn't succeed, we can always pull him back later, and then Woodruff will backfill when he's healthy. But like, I don't know what they're going to do here because Ashby and Hall have both failed miserably as starters in the past, and like, I'm not like I don't really buy either of them making it. Like, I've been burned by them too many times. What do you think?
So part of the issue could also be, do they want to limit Henderson because Henderson only pitched 81 innings last year in the minors? So do they want to backload those if they're trying to contend again? Because they're always sneaky contenders. So do they want to like build them up early in the season when they call them up, they leave them up versus like toying with them, like bring them up now, send them back, bring them up, send them back? That's one thing I think about when I see Henderson, because I think Henderson clearly would be like easily the option in terms of like of the names here. But I don't know. I think Ashby might be given a chance again. We know how it's probably going to go, but he was kind of in the mix before. It was supposed to be him versus DL Hall, and then there was like early reports like DL Hall is the favorite, and then Hall's hurt. So I could see them kind of going that route with Ashby to start. Not that I'm like optimistic. I guess another option might be Carlos Rodriguez. I don't really know how to feel about that. He did make 12 whole innings up. He pitched, he's at 140 innings last year. So
They need a Lance Lynn. Go just pop Lance Lynn in here until Woodruff is healthy.
They need. It's almost like they should have just gotten or kept Colin Ray or got him. I don't remember what happened with Colin Ray. Was he a free agent, or I know he was on this team last year, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they should just go for one of these low budget vets right now to backfill, because the
Kyle Gibson would
Ashby
be
and Hall
perfect.
working. Yeah, Kyle Gibson, exactly. That's the perfect guy. They're Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn, who has talked about possibly going to the bullpen. So if you get Lance Lynn, you throw him in the rotate. You're like, okay, dude, you're gonna start until Woodruff is healthy, and then you're gonna go in the pen. Okay, cool. Like,
yeah,
that could work right there.
And maybe they will. It's usually by now these types of teams are usually set, but I mean, I doubt they sign anybody. They've been cheap for years now.
Yeah. Those guys should be super cheap though. Like, you should be able to
get like $5-7 million.
Yeah. They're older guys that just want to like one last hurrah, right? Closer, you've got Trevor Megill, Abner Uribe, and then I threw a couple rookies in here, Jacob Mizurowski and Craig Yoho, as potential closers. Megill actually performed really well in this role last year. He's just like how we mentioned with Kinley. He's not a strikeout guy. So like, if you want strikeouts from your closer, then he's not going to be the guy. Or like Jason Foley, he's kind of like that type of guy he actually did strike out more guys than you would have kind of expected from like his past last year at the end of the season. But obviously, if you want to go high upside, like Abner Uribe has a ton of strikeout potential. Mizurowski could just be like Josh Hader 2.0 if they decided, okay, we're going to move him off starter and put him in the pen. And then you've got Yoho, who lit it up as a reliever last year. So, like, what do you think they're going to do with this whole situation?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing is I think it's McGill, but he's also dealing with an injury. It's like undisclosed, like hush hush. So we have no idea what's going on. Uribe was a guy that wasn't he the rookie last year that like people weren't really banking on him taking it and running with it because he was I don't remember if he had any time up prior to entering last year. Either way, he was the rookie.
Innings. It was like 8 innings or something like that.
So Craig Yoho stands out to me because again, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Mizrowski. I really don't know if they want to go the reliever route because I agree he could be an electric reliever. Craig Yoho already is an electric reliever, made it AAA, and the numbers were amazing. So the strikeout stuff's there. I believe he also throws the stupid changeup. The what's it called? The
airbender.
He throws the airbender. It's not stupid. It's just it's stupid in terms of like it's just like ridiculous how it works. But yeah. So he throws that, and I'm like, Yoho is kind of, and it's also a cool name, but I think he's the next guy up for me out of these names. Like I've been trying to, and I have no shares, and it upsets me because I got in on him a little too late.
Yeah, I have him in a couple dynasty leagues, so hopefully. New York Mets center field. We've got Starling Marte, Jose Siri. I put in here Luis Angel Acuna and Ronnie Mauricio because both of those guys did play outfield in the minors. And if they just want to try to get one of those bats in the lineup, this is like probably the spot to do it on this team because the rest of the team is pretty much written in pen, like not pencil. So what do you think for the Mets with the center field position? What are they going to do here?
So they pretty much said that Marte's like a weak side platoon guy. Mauricio still dealing with like he still isn't recovering the way they want him to. Luis Acuna, I can't. His first name gets away from me. He's been talked about more on the infield, like second base, third base. So Siri, I think they went out and got him for that reason. They have Tyrone Taylor. I don't know if he'll be healthy in time, but he's another option. And they talked about Jet Williams getting run in center field as well. So but I think it's Jose Siri, and I think that the goal is like the idea because his defense is elite. I know the bat is a question, but I think at least to start the year, he's the guy.
So that's pretty interesting. So Marte is going to be weak side platoon only. So you don't expect. What would you expect from like a plate appearance? Yeah, DH. What would you expect from a plate appearance standpoint from Marte this year? Like 400, or you think?
I think he'd be lucky to push 400 unless he gets traded for. I think he's like, I don't think it's strict platoon. I think it's one of those things like he'll face like the two lefties every week and he'll be the fourth outfielder against righties. Last year in 94 games, he got 400 plate appearances, but that was 370. But that was also playing as a starter. So I think 400-ish is fair if he actually stays in this role all year. But that's assuming no injuries. And we have Nemo who has plantar fasciitis, so who knows how long, like how that'll linger and affect him. And so I think 400 might be the low end. What's the projections even on? I'm curious now. Projections have him like 300. Yeah. So that would be like, I think that's worst case scenario. I see a path to more, but I'm also projecting other injuries and other ways of him getting in the lineup.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 400 would be like best case scenario, feels like, or worst case, whatever I said, worst case, best case, whatever. Feels like it.
Yeah. He had injury issues last year. He was actually looking okay. Like he wasn't terrible last year. But I didn't look at the splits to see like, hey, did he only play against, one-handed pitchers? So starting pitcher, SP5 and SP6, because apparently the Mets are going to go 6-man. It's kind of like the word on the street, right? So we've got Clay Holmes and Paul Blackburn, I guess, slated in right now. But you still have Tyler Megill hanging around, Trevor's brother. And then you've got Brandon Sprout in the minors kind of like hanging around. Who he was really good until he got to AAA and struggled a bit at AAA. So maybe they want him to work more there. But like, I feel like every Mets starter struggles at AAA. Like that's like they all get rocked there for whatever reason. AAA, I don't know what their park factors are in their AAA stadium, but their pitchers always have a tough time there. So what do you think is going to happen with this starting pitch with this rotation? Do you think they're going to stick to 6-man? And do you think like this is something that might just evolve? Like maybe they start at 6-man and go to 5-man once like Senga starts to feel good. Like what do you think they're going to do here?
So I've read a quote about the 6-man rotation, and it was like really wishy-washy. It was like, yeah, we're toying with the idea of a 6-man. It might just be like a guy fills in here and there. We piggyback a few of these guys to give them breaks. So like 6-man wasn't even in the traditional sense of like 6 starting pitchers, it was like maybe Clay Holmes goes 3 innings and the sixth starter would actually piggyback with Clay Holmes on that 5 day rotation. Like, it was weird. It wasn't like but even if they go 6-man, Clay Holmes they paid to start. Blackburn, his health will depend. Sproat, I've never seen. I keep seeing everyone's like, yeah, they that's like kind of what people want, but also they're debating if they'll start the clock on them. So I think McGill has the inside track there. And then there's Canning they signed, who is revamping his stuff, and we've seen flashes of him in the past. But and I always have a soft spot for Canning. I just can't quit him. But I do think McGill, Blackburn, Holmes probably make this rotation if it's a 6-man, and yeah, that kind of keeps Canning and Sproat out.
Yeah. Did Canning get a minor league contract or a major league contract?
It's a major league deal. 1 year, $4 million, I believe it was.
Oh, okay. So they could move him to the pen and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And hope
multi-innings
up.
But McGill also has experience pitching out of the pen, so maybe they want to give Canning a shot and use McGill in the multi-inning role. There is that option because I think McGill has options though.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Philadelphia Phillies. The only one that I have for the Phillies that like interested me as far as like position battles is the closer role. Because Jordan Romano was pretty bad last year, and Orion Kerkering was like spectacular. So like my thought on this, like I have 0 shares of Jordan Romano this year, and I don't plan to get any because I just think that Kerkering is going to overtake him at some point. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I was in on Kerkering earlier in the year because I wasn't sure if they were going to spend the money to go get something more secure. They go out and get Romano, and so Romano, I think he's the guy until he's not, either via health or performance. But I do think Kerkering, it's not a zero. There's a legit shot that Kerkering outproduces him in terms of save total this year, and I don't think it would surprise anybody. But Romano, I think they signed him to be the guy initially, and they're going to see what happens. I mean, and that's kind of where we're at. I'm with you though. I'm kind of just avoiding Romano at all at cost completely.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh Pirates, this is a weird one, right? Because they have so many catchers.
Dude, I don't even know. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I have no idea with the catchers. I think Bart's the guy, and then that's where I'd get kind of confused from there.
Yeah. So they've got this whole catcher, first base, left field DH situation where they've said, oh, maybe Brian Reynolds will play first base, but then, oh, maybe not. And then they signed Tommy Pham. And then you've got Jack Sawinski, who's still like alive. And then there's the 3 catchers, Joey Bart, Endy Rodriguez, who is now healthy, and Henry Davis, who will probably take up catcher in maybe first. Like there's talk of Endy Rodriguez playing in the first or the outfield. So like you already mentioned, you don't know what's going to happen. Spencer Horwitz is hurt too, which even complicates the situation further because Horwitz is like a first baseman / maybe a little bit of second base. He's better at first, but he could always play second. He's done it before.
They also have Nick York, who's out somewhere.
Yeah, you've got Nick and Nick. So Nick at night, Nick York and Nick Gonzalez at second base. So like this whole situation is just like this is almost like the Marlins and the White Sox situations we talked about. But the Pirates are supposed to be a good team. So it's like between all these dudes, it's like any of them could play the way that I look at it. But like, what are your thoughts? Like, who gets the most playing time? If you had to like rank, because you said you can't figure it out. I just want you to rank. Who gets the most plate appearances of these guys to the least plate appearances?
So I think Swinsky's kind of screwed right now. I think Pham was brought in to be the full-time corner outfielder, and if he underperforms and Swinsky gets a shot at it, they could platoon those two, but I don't know if there's enough space on this. I'd have to go look at the actual roster construction as a whole, because that platoon would also make sense, because Swinsky, we know he can hit righties. Last year he couldn't hit anything, but then Pham can hit lefties really well. But last year, but you saw the decline finally catch up to him. So I don't think Pham. I think Pham would get like an early run, and if he fails, then it might be a shorter leash. So, but in terms of the outfield, I think he's the favorite. Obviously, Reynolds playing every day. I think Henry Davis ends up getting screwed out of playing time. It's weird. High-end bat can't seem to get together. He revamped the swing again, I think, this offseason. Endy, I just don't think Endy Rodriguez is good enough to be a DH. Like, I think he's a solid real-life hitter. I think he's a good player, and I've been watching him catch bullpens, so I know they want to use him as a catcher. So maybe he is the backup catcher / DH / and maybe he covers first base while Horwitz is out, because Horwitz is their first baseman. I think they made that pretty clear too. So Endy might get to be able to get be that guy where he plays most days and be a catcher, DH, and first base, like mixing in all the three. And that's work. So I think Henry Davis and Jack Swinsky kind of are the odd men out in terms of playing most of the time. And Bart, I don't suddenly believe Bart's good though. Like, Bart was a former top prospect, we know that, and he showed us a solid half a year or whatever with the Pirates, and now like they have too much depth behind them to give him a long leash either. Because what do they owe Bart besides like, hey, thanks for your hot finish or hot play while you were here. Thanks for your good play. We're gonna let you start for a little bit, but if you suck, you know. So I don't. But I think Bart. I think it's his job to lose though. So for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I think like a part of that too might be how much do the pitchers like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, did Paul Skeens like really get along with him? So it's like, if that's the case, if Paul Skeens loves Joey Bart, then Joey Bart is going to be there and he's going to catch.
Absolutely.
It's like, but if Paul Skeens doesn't care about Joey Bart, then it's like, okay, you let him play, and then maybe you can trade him for something if that's what you want to do. I think. What do you think about like the value for Endy though? Like, even what if he hits like 270 with like 12 homers, but he's playing every day? There's like still a lot of value in that as like a catcher too.
Yeah, I think there's more fantasy value than there's rollout. That's the thing though. I'd be surprised if you played that much because I don't know if the bat is good enough to be a DH or first baseman. You know, like I think there's potential there, but I haven't seen anything that screams to me, yeah, you know what, this guy's like. You put Francisco Alvarez at first base and DH more days than not. I'm really excited there because I think that bat can play up as a DH first baseman. I don't think Endy has that. I think Endy has he'd be a really good offensive catcher and not great offensively at another position.
Yeah, it's like almost like a Kirk profile, like Alejandro Kirk profile.
Yeah, with a little more pop though. That's the thing. Yeah. So I think that's why I'm like, I think Endy could be a really solid catching, like a hitting catcher. I just don't know if he has. And maybe getting off from behind catcher can help the power play it more often. I don't know. Plus, he's coming off his own pretty significant injury. You know, I think it was the Tommy John. So,
yeah.
And then,
hitters usually come back from pretty well. But yeah, throwing. So pitcher, we have SP4, SP5. Bailey Falter is the boring one. And you know what? They just signed Andrew Haney. So I think Andrew Haney's probably a lock, actually.
Yeah, I think Haney. Falter feels like that guy that's just going to be there to clog innings while the young guys get ready. I think Oviedo might be the odd man out right now too, because I think he's behind on prep. I could be wrong about that though. I remember seeing somebody, and I have a group chat. Someone's was giving another friend of ours crap because it's his guy, and I think he's behind in his prep. So. But at the end of the day, though, because of the Heaney signing, that gives and if Falter does in fact break camp, I think Chandler might be the Paul Skeens of last year, not in terms of how good he is, but I think Chandler would be. I just don't have a hard time. Why would they? The Chandler's built up already. They have no reason not to let him break camp. They let Jared Jones break camp last year. So
I have a theory that Thomas Harrington is ahead of Bubba Chandler on their depth chart.
Why though? Because of the 40-man thing?
He was also older and he reached AAA before him. So I have a feeling that Harrington is ahead of Chandler on the depth chart.
Oh, they're both not. They're both not on the 40-man. Never mind.
but he is older and he's thrown more innings and he's a command guy. So I feel like it's easier to just throw Harrington up in the back of the rotation if Falter sucks.
So why bring in Heaney? I guess Heaney can also do bullpen stuff. He's not bad. Oh, and Falter has no options. That sucks.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think all the young guys are screwed.
Yeah, I think so too. Probably now that they brought Haney in, and especially at the beginning of the season. But I do think that Harrington beats Chandler up.
Don't say that to me. I'm such a Chandler guy. I have so much Chandler. I bet on the skills, and I saw how and my thing is the Pirates notoriously have been a little more passive with calling up the prospects. They really leaned into it last year, and they called out everybody, and the pitchers. Jared Jones broke camp, and Skeens was up a month and a half into the season, and I was like, dude. And Chandler has I think Chandler could be closer to what Jared Jones was type of thing. So not obviously no one's gonna be Skeens, right? But I think Chandler Jones, but Chandler Jones, wrong name. Chandler, what's his name? Bubba Chandler. Thank you.
Bubba. Yeah.
Good old Bubba. Yeah. So I think I don't know. I really like the skills, man, and I really do have a hard time just seeing them not have, even if they have both of them up. There's no reason why Falter should not be stopping these kids. Heaney can go to the bullpen, be a multi-inning guy like he has in the past. I think he's done it in the past. At least I'm thinking of Tyler Anderson. They're all the same guy.
Yeah.
They're all the same guy. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why they did what they did.
I've said it before and I'll stick to it. The Pirates are the Mariners of the National League.
Yeah.
Bad lineup, fantastic pitching. San Diego Padres. We've got catcher here. They signed Elias Diaz. to kind of
Yeah.
block Luis Campusano. Campusano started strong last year and then was really bad like the last like 2/3 of the season. So I don't know if this is them trying to push Campusano, like, hey, you've got some competition, so you should be good this year, or if they're just completely replacing him. Like, what is your thought on this catcher situation here?
They've said as much as like, it's like, hey, it's an open competition. They're paying Diaz 4 million, 5 million. They're not paying him a lot. So I think it's more, and so I think it's more of like a Campusano Diaz. I think they're both going to play. I think, and Sullivan's in the mix apparently, but I think Sullivan's more of like their depth in the minors. So I think it might be like a 50-50 split, Diaz and Campusano. And I don't know. I think spring might actually matter for this one.
Yeah.
But I do think both of them end up breaking camp as the two catchers for this team anyway.
Yeah.
Neither of them are going to be.
That's interesting if they both get 50. It's like situations will start that way, but none of them really ever work out that way.
Yeah,
So,
I think cream rises to the top. I mean, one is 26 and a former decent prospect, and the other one is a 34-year-old Elias Diaz who's had success here and there because of cores.
yeah. And then moving to the next one, DH. Their DH options are so bad that like it's very possible that both of these catchers, like Campusano, if he's hitting, like there's a chance that like he could be the DH.
Connor Joe could factor in. I think
Yeah.
Gavin Sheets probably gets it, and I'm not excited about that because as much as I think Tirso Ornella should get a shot. They went out and signed Hayward. They went out and got Connor Joe for depth. There's been a lot of hype about Rosario, but Rosario played the infield like exclusively last year, and he's already playing the infield in spring this year. I would like to see them give Ornelas a shot, and you keep the DH open for other guys to kind of stay healthy and rotate through. And but Sheets would fit that bill then because Sheets would allow them to, I don't know. Brousseau is more of a weak side platoon guy. I know they just signed him from over. Was he in Asia playing somewhere, Japan maybe?
Yeah. I mean, he was always a good hitter, weak side. So it's like,
but
you could do a little DH platoon type deal here with those guys.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think Ornelas, give him a shot. Like Hayward, I don't know. Hayward, it depends on what team he's on. For whatever reason, the Dodgers just loved him and he was starting like every single day.
Yeah.
When before he was more in a platoon role himself. So it's like, how are the Padres going to feel about him? Are they going to say, hey, we want that glove in the field every day? So they're just going to keep starting him every day? I don't really know. It'll be curious to see the way that they go. I probably should have just put that on here, like what's going to happen with this platoon situation here. But
it's a mess. Like, it's such a mess.
Yeah, they have no depth. The Padres are so top heavy. This is like the real life version of Stars or Scrubs.
That's how it was last year too. It's what they do, and then they obviously had always wrong. I'm really bad with like I want to call Merrill Kelly, but it's Jackson Merrill. They hit on him. That's what gives me hope. Like Tirso, as long as Tirso Ornelas performs in spring, there's no reason why he won't break camp for this team. I don't think they're going to guarantee. Like Sheets might be the favorite right now, just because he provides them like an instant player that they know can hit against lefty or righties, be an everyday DH type with some outfield and first base depth. And he could platoon with Connor Joe really easily out of DH type of thing. But I think that if Ornelas proves himself in spring, we see how aggressive the Padres are. I think it's his job to lose.
Yeah. What do you think about SP5? We got Matt Waldron sticking around with the knuckleball, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Hart.
I think they went out and got Kyle Hart for the reason with the idea of starting him. I think it's really that simple. How long is the leash? I don't know. It wasn't like an expensive deal, but for this team to sign anybody this year, you think they got to be doing that with the idea of like, hey, we want you. We're going to start you, because this team has been very, very keeping the wallet shut because of like the ownership issues. So I think it's Kyle Hart.
Yeah, interesting. Giants. We've got first base DH kind of open for the Giants right now. Looking at Marco Luciano, who like is supposed to be shortstop, but they kind of blocked him now with Adames. So I don't know what's going to happen there. You've got Chapman at third and Adames at short. But you still have Luciano around potentially. Maybe they tell him, hey, just forget about defense, try to hit, kid. Like, let's see if you're going to turn this around. You got Bryce Eldridge, who is just like soaring. He's like a top 15 prospect for me. Beast of a kid. I mean, the dude is 20 though, so it's like, do you really want to rush him? So it's like, just let him hang out for a little bit, probably. Then you still have Wilmer Flores and Lamont Wade Jr., who can, swing the bat a little bit, and will probably be in some kind of weird platoon. But like, do you think they try to work Luciano in somewhere? And like, what do you think about like Eldridge? Is he going to be up this year? And like, what is your thoughts on like when that might happen?
Oh, I mean, you said it. He's 20 years old. I can't. They haven't been. I mean, maybe they haven't really had prospects worthy of rushing up. So maybe Aldridge forces their hand for the second half. But I mean, you're more prospect guy than I am. The age alone screams cup of coffee. Maybe maybe 2 months. But why would you extend? Why would you give him more? Like if you're not going to start him up in the year, just like to break camp, why would you bring him up before he loses like a lot far enough to lose that rookie eligibility and not give you a chance at that pick next year? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's why he screams cup of coffee to me.
that's my guess. They probably do that and do like the whole
Lamont
call him
Wade's
up.
already been like they already said Lamont Wade's leading off and everything. So Lamont Wade's playing first base. I think DH is interesting because Wilmer Flores he got PRP injection in his arm. I saw something today about that, so I don't know if he's in. Plus he wasn't even when he was healthy. He barely played against righties unless they had nobody else. Encarnacion is in the mix for first base DH too. I mean he's also a righty, so they don't really have any lefties on the bench is the thing. So there's going to be I think they're going to kind of play the hot hand at DH / like give guys days off. So I think Encarnacion and Flores will factor the most. I think Luciano kind of gets screwed, and he hasn't really done anything to force them to say, "Hey, we'll give you a real good look here."
Yeah, I just think of like Elliot Ramos. Like he was a dead guy until last year, and then he just all of a sudden exploded. And he was like a a pretty hot prospect for a while too.
Yeah,
I'm like okay, if Ramos can make a turnaround like that, like with this organization, what's to stop Luciano from doing something similar at some point? I mean, he hits the ball hard, so it's just trying to put it all together, and you don't want to stop him from progressing. So like,
yeah.
I don't know if he's hitting at AAA. I just think you blocked him at short, you blocked him at third. Maybe
Well,
you just try to say, hey, come up.
Fitzgerald might be. I mean, Fitzgerald could easily open up a spot for anybody because he's not that great of a hitter.
Yeah, very true. He's got a lot of holes in his swing. He's an interesting cat, though. Like
He's fun. It's a fun thing. It's a fun story. Like he has the pop, but it reminds me of what's his face that came up and did something very similar and then flamed out early the next year. I can't think of his name. Same team, same idea. Like the guy came up, hit the cover off the ball, kind of out of nowhere, and then teams figured him out. He slowed down, and then the next year he just never got going again. And I think they've had a couple guys like that recently. Nothing of no one of real note.
Yeah.
But so that's what scares me about Fitzgerald. Like I think the power's legit. I just don't know how much he's gonna be able to hit. I think it was fastballs he was crushing, and then the teams figured that out, and he couldn't touch off speed and breaking stuff. So
yeah, SP5. We got Jordan Hicks. Like I'm just curious, is Hicks going to start the whole year this year? And then you've got Hayden Birdsong, who I really like. And then you still have like some 6-starter guys like Mason Black can come eat some innings. He was pretty good in the minors last year at the beginning of the year. Came up, got beat down, and then like was bad after. And then Carson Wiesenhunt, who was really good in the minors until he went to the PCL and got rocked. So it's like that might just be like, hey, get him out of the PCL kind of situation. But like between all these guys, like I just don't see Jordan Hicks lasting unless like obviously you're gonna have injury backfill here. But like Birdsong and Wiesenhunt in my mind are too good to just like be like, okay, you're gonna hang out in the minors all year until someone gets hurt. So
they've already said that. I think Hicks is it's his spot. I think, but like you said, if he gets hurt or flames out, there's an opening. Plus, they have Verlander who hasn't stayed healthy the last few years and stuff like that. So there's gonna be ways to get these guys in there. But apparently, right now, so Hicks is in the rotation. I think he put on some weight or something to help with durability. I think I was reading the other day. And then Birdsong and Harrison.
yeah.
Those two are fighting for the final rotation spot apparently.
Yeah, which is crazy because Harrison was like,
he had his moments.
Yeah. St. Louis Cardinals. We've got catcher here. I don't even know this one. I'm hoping you have more insight than me because to me, Ivan Herrera is a stud, but the Cardinals, because Pages is a little better defensively, are just like they love Pages for some reason. Yeah. So I'm just in this spot where I'm like, come on, please do the right thing and like play the really good hitter. But I don't know if they will. So it's like
no, I think it might be like a 50-50. I've seen people call it 60-40 for Pages because of the defense. If Herrera worked on his defense this spring and shows out in spring with his defense, then maybe that changes because obviously Herrera is the far superior hitter. Pages should not be more than anyone's backup and maybe a defensive replacement late in games type of thing, or maybe if he's someone's like you say some pitcher's favorite catcher. But Herrera should be the guy just with the offensive capabilities. but it sounds like it's a true split. Honestly, at least that's again, we haven't had any updated reports in like forever. So
I hope not. Like, I really hope not. But as a Cardinals fan, I hope not. Now we got this other situation too, where like basically the Cardinals are like, okay, we're going to trade Arenado so that Nolan Gorman will be the starting third baseman. How did that work out? So now they want everyday at bats for Nolan Gorman. They want everyday at bats for Brendan Donovan. They want everyday at bats for Lars Nootbaar. So there you go, second, third, and center. But then what about Victor Scott? Is he just gone now? And you've got Ciani, who's like a really good defender, who probably would be better in a fourth outfielder role.
Didn't they already say something about him starting as a center fielder for them too?
Yeah, which is silly because if you're rebuilding, you want to play like your young guys. So it really makes no sense if, we're in a step back, we're in a rebuilding year, but we're trying to win. So you're going to play Ciani because Ciani might be slightly better than Victor Scott now.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm with you. I'd be more surprised to see Ciani starting. I think they could get by with Lars in center, or at least see what he can do in center. And then if they truly mean that they want to get Gorman regular at bats, I wish they would give Sagasi regular bats over Gorman personally. Or Sagase, however you say his name, but
Sagasi,
yeah, whatever. I like him. I should know his name better. I'm bad with names, but Sagasi. I like him. I like him more than Gorman, and I wish they would stop playing this whole Gorman game. But at least they're gonna, if they actually want to do what you said they did, it makes the most sense. But yeah, Victor Scott still gets screwed.
Exactly.
But he hasn't given them any reason to say, hey, here's some playing time. Like he hasn't forced it at all.
No, last year outside of spring, he was terrible. But I'll tell you, I saw him in spring, I don't know, 6 or 7 games or something last year, and he was the best player on the team in spring. So that should have probably told me right there that the Cardinals are going to be terrible last year when your best player is Victor Scott. But instead, me with my Cardinals blinders on, I'm like, oh, Victor Scott's just going to be a baller. But, SP4, SP5, this situation is so dumb. I don't even know. Like, as a Cardinals fan, it makes me mad. Steven Matz still on the team. And apparently they had interest. Like there were teams like the Blue Jays and the Tigers, I guess, who like were calling about him. And it's like, why are you not going to trade him? They go, well, we need depth. We need pitching depth. No, you're supposed to be rebuilding and you have all these young pitchers. It's like play McGreevy, play Quinn Matthews. So like now we have this SP4, SP5 spot where you've got Steven Matz, you've got Andre Palante. They were like pretty much banked, I would say. Palante is definitely banked. He was really good at the end of last year. But then you've got McGreevy and Quinn Matthews, who I'd much rather see than Steven Matz or Miles Michaelis. So, like, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, like, probably Matz is going to get hurt because that's all he's done. He's been with the Cardinals for 3 years. It's going to be his 4th year, and I don't know if he's pitched more than, like, 50 innings. So
Matz has done really well out of the bullpen, too, at times. So it's like, can't they just put him back in the bullpen and let McGreevy? McGreevy is on the 40-man. Quinn Matthews is not, so that kind of, in my opinion, puts McGreevy ahead of him. But like you said, Palante is he's definitely in. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's, like you said, Matt shouldn't be a factor, but I guess he is. I don't think he's long for the spot anyway, so I would still think McGreevy's probably the next guy up over Matthews. And that's because the 40-man differences on a team like this that doesn't seem like they want to make any moves. So
in a deep league, would you just buy in on McGreevy getting like a bulk of playing time then?
I would probably if I was buying. Matt's isn't even on my board. I would probably like assume McGreevy's up sooner than later type of thing. Like just take him and hope like almost like Bubba Chandler. Like you got to think this guy's going to be up, maybe not as good, but you know what I mean. You got to think this guy's up sooner than later and pitching a meaningful amount of innings this year.
Yeah, exactly. Washington Nationals got this outfield situation here where Jacob Young is apparently going to be starting. I don't know really.
Well, the glove. Like I looked this up the other day. The dude is stupid elite in center. So the glove will probably keep him there. And he put on a bunch of muscle apparently.
Oh, really? Well, I just see like didn't Dylan Cruz play center in college?
He played center I think even in the minors or even last year at the major league level. He played some center. So I think like if they want to platoon an outfielder, they can move Cruz to center as a platoon partner. Cruz will play full time, but Cruz can move over to center against lefties. Young can sit, but Young's glove was like stupid elite. Like I looked at his DRS and his outs above average, and they were like Kiermaier good, like ridiculous.
So is Juan Yepes screwed then, basically?
Yeah, basically. He might get weak side platoon reps like DH and stuff like that, but pretty screwed, especially because they keep freaking signing lefty mashers.
Yeah, keep getting similar guys. SP4, SP5. He was good at the end of last year too, so it kind of sucks.
Yeah, no, that's why I was surprised with all the signings.
SP4, SP5. You got Trevor Williams, Michael Soroka. Like I really
everybody's been
Soroka
sorry, yeah, I hate to interrupt, but everyone's been promised innings on this team.
Yeah.
So I think Williams has a spot and Soroka has a spot and Hers does. And Soroka was so good in the bullpen last year on a 1-year deal. Put him in your bullpen, make him your closer.
Yeah, they should. Hers was awesome last year. And then you got Cade Cavalli coming back. Jackson Rutledge is not bad.
There was actually like an early report that Cavalli would have a chance to fight for that last starting spot before and then they went out and signed the guy from Asia too.
Yeah. And then then you still have Laura, Brad Lord, Cole Henry, D in there. But like you got a decent amount of guys here, and it's like a lot of these guys are like past AAA. I think there was another team we talked about this with yesterday, but it's like all these guys are like, okay, they're too good for AAA now, but there's no room on the major league roster. So what do? Do you just convert them all to bullpen guys? Like, you're all
Mitchell
just
Parker
relegated to bullpen now. So have fun with that.
Like, they have a whole bunch. So but I think it's between Williams, Soroka, and Hers, and I would like to see Soroka go back to the pen. I think Cavalli gets up second half. I was hoping for. I love Cavalli, and even if he's a bullpen arm, like he could close this team in the second half. But
yeah, me too. Yeah, get him in there. That'd be cool actually if they just put him in the pen and say, okay, work up in the pen. Start in the pen, just work your way up, and then you don't even have to put him as the closer. What you can do is you can just
piggyback him.
Start him as Exactly, and just work them up to 3.
But they're not going to do that.
In the pen, and they should, but they're not going to.
Transitioning right into that, I think Jorge Lopez or George Lopez is it Jorge or George? It's spelled Jorge.
He's Jorge. I wish he was George. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, George Lopez. Yeah, but Jorge Lopez already something happened the other day where I think he's like the favorite, it makes sense because you see who they have. I'm surprised the fact that they didn't keep Finnegan and the fact that they haven't signed anybody blows my mind because this team is like sneaky good.
Yeah. Well, that's why it makes sense. If they signed Soroka, just make him the closer, like you said. Like they said
that they would give him a chance to start. Hopefully, he's just really bad as a starter in spring, and they're like, "Yeah, we gave you a chance. You're our closer."
Yeah. Chance over. Had fun. Chance over.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's it. See, National League we did in like almost half the time of the American League. American League battles are, I guess, more fun. I
also got lost in the sauce probably a little bit there.
Oh, that's okay. So you can find Mike on Twitter at Mike_Kurland, and you can find me at Fantasy Aceball. Again, listen to the podcast on the Fantasy Aceball podcast or watch on YouTube at the Tim Kanak on YouTube. Mike, you got anything to rep here before we peace out?
No, just kind of doing my thing for spring and going from there.
All right, cool. Check out the chart that we talked about last time on the pod. Everybody go to Mike's X, Twitter, whatever you guys call it, and click on that link and just follow along. Just leave it open on your browser. We want to have as many people viewing that document as possible at any given time. We're going to try to set a numbers record on there.
Oh, I stopped looking. A few years ago, I used to keep really high tabs on that, and then I realized I stopped.
Got addicted to it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the podcast, everybody. Peace out. Thanks for jumping on, Mike. Appreciate it.
Later, buddy.